So why do interviewers always ask, so why did you leave? When the real reason is because that place was a professional haunted house. And if I told you that the biggest mistake that people make is trying to actually tell the truth in a way that accidentally makes them sound bitter, risky, or hard to manage? Because here's the truth. You want to be honest, but you also want that particular job. Top of the morning, everyone. My name is Tilly and I'm back with another video. Today, I'm showing you exactly how to explain leaving a toxic job in interviews without actually sounding very negative, and how to turn that question into a confidence moment that actually makes you look mature, clear, employable right now as they speak into you. So, what are they really asking when they say, why did you leave your last job? They're not asking you for the office gossip. Remember that. They're checking three main things. And I'll give you the bonus one. Is one, are you emotionally steady, or are you still carrying some of that drama from the past? Number two, will you badmouth us once again in the future when you get a chance to? And then number three, did you actually take any responsibility, or is everybody else always the problem? And the bonus one is, they want to know if this is also an opportunity or you're actually running away from something that they will be worried about in future. So in any job interview, when you left the toxic work environment, your goal is not to expose your old workplace. Your goal is to actually show very good judgment. And the easiest way to actually do this is with a very simple formula. And here's the three-part answer that will make you never to sound negative. And use this structure every single time. The first thing is sound neutral. No emotions, no character assassinations, nothing. Just sound as neutral as you can. Number two, what did you actually do about it? Show a bit of maturity and initiative. Did you do something about that particular toxic environment? And then number three, what do you actually want now? It brings back to the role that you actually applied to. And here's a simple template that you can actually follow or practice this template for the future. You could say something like, I realized I was actually no longer in an environment where I could actually do my best work long term. I obviously tried to address it by doing X. And when it did improve, I also decided to move towards a role where, I can actually do what I'm aiming for, which is basically what you guys are doing. Please notice what we didn't say in this conversation. We didn't say anything about toxic managers. We didn't say anything about their jealous. We didn't say anything about HR was useless. Nothing. You can be honest without being messy. And if you want to be petty, yes, that's a conversation for you and your friends later. But for interviews, it's not about that. In a second, I'm actually going to give you a word-for-word examples for the most toxic scenarios that you can ever deal with. But first, let's actually talk about what not to say, because this is where people actually lose that particular room that they're in. And the question that anybody would ask is, what makes you sound negative instantly? Avoid these three traps, please. Number one is naming and shaming. My manager was narcissistic, the team were bullies, and they really hated everybody. Even if it's true, it makes the interviewer think this actually might be a pattern. Number two, sounding like a victim with no agency. There was nothing I could actually do. Interviewers actually want to see a bit of problem solving. Even if it didn't help in the end, you were not helpless through that particular scenario. And then number three is oversharing like it's actually a therapy session. Interviews are not group counseling. Even if it actually feels tempting and you feel like you've got the rapport with the team, it's not about that. And then number four is revenge energy. I left because I refused to tolerate disrespect. That sounds like you might be very difficult to deal with. Instead, show a bit of boundaries in a very calm way. And I'll show you exactly how. Now, let's turn the messy reality into a very clean professional language. And below, I'll actually give you word-for-word answers for very toxic situations that you can deal with. Number one, if it was a toxic manager, here's what you can say. I was looking for a more supportive and structured leadership environment. I obviously raised concerns, asked for clearer priorities and feedback, but the working style didn't align with how I actually perform best. So I decided to move into a role where expectations and collaborations were a bit more clearer and I can actually deliver consistently. Beautiful, straight to the point. If it was because of bullying or disrespect, here's what you can say. I value professionalism and constructive communication. Over time, the culture wasn't consistent with that. And after trying to actually address it through very direct conversations with both my line managers and a few other people or a few other stakeholders and focusing on my work, I realized that actually wasn't the best long-term fit for me and my career. I'm now actually focused on joining a team with a respectful, high-performance culture. And from what I understand, this is what your team is all about. Number 3, if it was chaos, constant firefighting, unrealistic workload, here's what you can say. The role became heavily reactive. With shifting priorities and limited resources, I put in systems in place to manage it better, and I flagged capacity risks a lot earlier in the process, but the structure didn't change. I'm now looking for a role where I can actually work in a more sustainable way and have a bigger impact in my role. Number 4, if it was ethical issues or where people actually cross the line, keep it vague but very firm. And this is what you can say. I'm careful about working in environments that actually align with my values and professional standards. I raised quite a few concerns appropriately, and when it actually became clear that the direction wasn't changing, I decided to actually move on, and that's why I actually applied for this role. I'm now looking for an organization where integrity and accountability are generally prioritized in our day-to-day responsibilities that we do. Number 5, if you left quickly, like anything under a year or 6 months. This one obviously scares a lot of people, but you can actually frame it very, very well. And this is what you can say. It became clear early on that the role and the environment weren't what was actually described during the hiring process. I gave it a fair chance and tried to make it work, but I'm intentional about finding the right long-term fit, which is why I'm being selective and focused on roles like this one that I've actually applied to. And here's a quick tip, guys. Please do not say they lied to me. Say it wasn't what was described. Say message, less heat on the other side of the table. And next, I'll show you how to handle follow-up questions that actually catch people off guard most of the time. And here's what you actually do. They might ask you something like, what specifically didn't you like? Or what actually happened? How did you try to resolve it? These are normally follow-up questions that come up after you've described the things that I've shared with you guys. And here's how you actually calmly answer it with a safe response. I'd rather not go into too much detail, but what I can actually share is what I've learned. And I'm looking forward to sharing some of those lessons in my role going forward. Then you go straight into something like what you've learned. What is it that you've learned in that particular time? Number 2, what do you want right now? And then number 3, how you work best. What is it that actually makes you thrive in any work environment? Example, what I learned was I work best with clearer priorities and regular feedback. That's why I'm actually excited about this role, because your team structure and goals sound much more aligned with how I'd actually like to deliver some of the results. That's how you actually keep your boundaries and still sound very cooperative and answering the questions that they've put to you. And here's actually how you turn everything about these negative things into a strength move for you. This is the part that makes you stand out compared to any other person. Toxic jobs often teach you skills that you can never learn from anywhere, and you can reframe those things positively. For example, boundary setting, prioritization, stakeholder management, documentation, resilience without chaos, addiction, that's what it actually gives you in these chaotic environments. So try this then. That experience actually taught me the importance of clear communication and expectations. Since then, I've actually become more proactive about aligning early and raising risks quite early professionally with whoever I'm actually working with. You're not saying, I suffered, guys. It was tough. You're saying, I grew and now I'm smarter. And then the other thing that people might want to know is there anything that can actually help you protect you every time? If you're nervous, you'll normally sound negative. Anchor yourself with something like this. I'm grateful for what I've actually learned in the last couple of years or in the last few months. And I'm actually focused on where I can contribute best next. It's classy, it closes the door, and it moves the conversation forward. Because anybody that still wants to go back to that conversation is the toxic one. So you've at least closed that conversation to say, you know what, I've learned quite a lot and I'm focused on actually moving forward in my next new role. When they ask you why you've actually left your toxic job or your toxic manager or your toxic company, keep it neutral. Show what you've actually done about it. Pivot to what you actually want right now. Avoid details that sound like you're ranting, because that never helps anybody. And then number 5 is answer follow-ups with boundaries plus lessons that you've actually learned in alignment. And here's a question I have for you guys. What's been the hardest part about explaining your job change? Is it the fear of sounding negative or worry that they won't believe you? Drop in the comments. Let's be able to actually discuss it going forward. So today we've covered 3 things. How interviewers interpret your reasons for leaving, the 3-part structure that actually keeps you sounding very professional, and exact phrases that you can use on a daily basis every time you get interviewed for different toxic situations that you sound very confident and you do not sound bitter. Now, here's what I actually want you to do today. Write your answer using 3-part framework that I've actually given you guys. Then practice it out loud until it sounds calm and clean. If it still sounds emotional, try and shorten it a bit, because the less detail, the more direction. If you found these tips helpful, don't forget to like, don't forget to share, and subscribe for content that's designed to help you navigate your career path with confidence, skill. Until we meet again in the next video, peace.